Welcome to the PJ Hoop Podcast. I'm your host, PJ, and if this is your very first time checking out my podcast, just want to let you guys know this is a podcast for all basketball lovers. So on my podcast, I don't just talk about the NBA. I like to talk about college and even a little bit of high school, and then also a little bit of international basketball as well. Today's episode will be the very first time that I'm introducing a new segment that I like to call In the Lab. And in that segment, essentially, is when I'll be talking about college, high school, and international. If you're interested in even checking out previous content where I talked about those topics, you can go ahead and check out episode 5 where I talked about FIBA basketball. And then also episode, I believe 16 is where I talked about college hoops as well. If you're interested in seeing, earlier content on that. Otherwise, week in and week out, I go over the same 4 segments. And again, if this is your first time checking out my episode, the 4 segments that I like to go over, the first one is a segment I like to call PJ's Echelon. Now, in this segment, essentially, is just me giving my power rankings week in and week out. The 4 criteria that I like to use for my power rankings is strength of schedule, the eye test, statistically, and then also the team's record. But the most important thing with going into that segment is understanding that it's a progressive list, okay? So week in and week out, it changes. Understanding that I'm not a perfect man, but I am a progressive man, okay? So that's PJ's Echelon. The other segment that I go over, it's a segment I like to call What's New. Now, in this segment, essentially, it's kind of a freestyle, but also me just giving you some type of statistical record that may have happened, or some NBA news, or just me ranting, okay? So that's a segment of What's New. The other segment that I like to go over is a game I like to call Games of the Week. Now, in this segment, essentially, is just me giving you guys games that I really enjoyed, or games that had some type of significance to them. The last segment that I go over is Rookie Talk. Now, in the segment of Rookie Talk, it is what it sounds like. Rookie Talk, I'm just talking about today's rookies that I like, rookies that I don't like, rookies that have impressed me, rookies that have disappointed me. But also, within Rookie Talk, I'll be going bi-weekly. Rookie Talk and In the Lab will now be trading off week in and week out. Up to this point where I've recorded, you'll notice that all I've talked about was Rookie Talk. But moving forward, every other week, I will be doing In the Lab in substitution for Rookie Talk, all right? So that's that. So with that being said, just to let you guys know, this is being recorded at about 1 p.m. on Tuesday, December 17th, 2024. So just keep that in mind as I go through my rankings, as I go through giving you guys information on today's episode. Also, today's episode is the first time that I'll be displaying highlights of the games for my games of the week. So stay tuned to that segment. This is the first time that I'll be doing that. Just to add a little, spin to the episode and also give you guys something visually. Visually, you'll be able to see what I'm talking about at the same time, all right? Now, let's just dive straight into the first segment on the board, and that is PJ's Echelon. Now, again, in this segment, essentially, these are my power rankings. And understanding that this list is a progressive list because I'm a progressive man. I'm not a perfect man. Now, the criteria, if you missed the beginning of the episode, I use the eye test, statistically, where you sit, strength of schedule, but then also the team's record, okay? Those are the 4 criteria. Now, let's just dive straight into it. I'm not going to waste your time anymore. And remember, this is being recorded Tuesday, December 17th at 1 p.m. Number 1 on my list, this team is 21-5, and that is the Boston Celtics. Boston right now, they're second in the NBA in offensive efficiency. They're 8th in defensive efficiency, and they're 3rd in net rating. Oddly enough, and maybe I'm just not looking at the right places. Maybe I'm looking in the wrong places, but Boston, I don't know if people are really talking about them much. I don't know. I just feel like I haven't really seen much conversation around Boston, but I feel like they're kind of just flying under the radar right now. They're still averaging the second fewest turnovers per game in the NBA at 12. They're still taking the most threes in the NBA at 51. And I just feel like with this team, when they want to, they can be a top 3 offense or a top 3 defense or simultaneously, all right? So Boston's number 1 on my list. I'm not going to go too much into Boston today, okay? Number 2. This team is 20-5, and that is the Oklahoma City Thunder. Oklahoma right now, they're 8th in the NBA in offensive efficiency. They're 1st in defensive efficiency, and they're 1st in net rating. OKC has been a top 3 team for me for most of this year. Probably like most of you guys. They're 1st in steals. They're 4th in blocks. They're allowing the fewest points in the paint. And the greatest stat about them is that they're averaging, and they have accumulated more steals than they have turnovers on the season, okay? They have 304 steals and 295 turnovers. Shout out to the Oklahoma City Thunder. They're at number 2 for me this week. Number 3. This team is 23-4, and that's the Cleveland Cavaliers. Cleveland right now, they're first in offensive efficiency, they're 9th in defensive efficiency, and they're 2nd in net rating. They're a league best 15-0 against teams below 500, and they're 14-1, which I believe also is a league best. Actually, I think they might. So I think Orlando is like 10-1 at home or 12-1. But yeah, Cleveland has the best home record in the NBA at 14-1 right now. They're 15-2 in games decided by 10 points or more. So they're just coasting right now, in my opinion. My biggest concern for them is obviously, like most teams, but obviously we're talking about this team in particular right now, is them staying healthy. Last year, Donovan Mitchell only played 55 games. Darius Garland only played 57 games. Evan Mobley only played 50 games. So that's just something to monitor as we go through the season with this team, is them staying healthy, because right now they're kind of coasting. Number 4 on my list, this team is 17-9, and that is the Dallas Mavericks. Dallas right now, they're 4th in offensive efficiency. They're 11th in defensive efficiency, and they're 6th in net rating. So for right now, I kept Dallas at number 4, slightly above Memphis, just because they've had a better record against teams against they have had a better record than Memphis against teams above 500 than Memphis, and it's slightly different. I believe, I don't have it in front of me right now, but I believe Dallas is, I think they're 10-6 against teams above 500, or 10-7, and then Memphis, I believe, is 6-6. So obviously not a big discrepancy, but also the eye test, I believe that Memphis is also, Dallas did beat Memphis a couple weeks ago, so that's somewhat still on my mind. But also the eye test just tells me that that Dallas is slightly better than Memphis at this point in the season. And one of my games of the week, I will be talking about Dallas versus Golden State, because that game was insane. That's coming up soon, okay? So stay tuned to that. But like I told you guys last week, I felt like Luka was having, a very solid, a very MVP-like month, and that continued over this week. So I got Dallas at number 4 right now in my power rankings, okay? Number 5, I just said the team. They're 18-9, and that is the Memphis Grizzlies. Memphis right now, they're 5th in offensive efficiency. They're 6th in defensive efficiency, and they're 4th in net rating. So again, I just have them slightly above Dallas, just because, like I said, they're only 6-6 against teams above 500. But they also average the 2nd most turnovers per game, and that was something that has concerned me and something I've been paying attention to. But they also are playing the 2nd fastest pace in the NBA right now. And in my opinion, like I've been saying since the very beginning of the season, this is the deepest team in basketball to me. Yes, they just lost to the Los Angeles Lakers on Sunday, but come on, let's be real. Memphis is a young team, and they're in La La Land. They're in Los Angeles on a Saturday night, so I'm not holding that over their heads. I'm pretty sure this team went out, so I didn't hold that over their heads that they lost to the Lakers, all right? So I got Memphis at number 5 this week. Number 6 this week, this team is 17-9, and that is the Houston Rockets. Houston right now, they're 18th in offensive efficiency. They're 2nd in defensive efficiency, and they're 7th in net rating. They beat the Warriors in a very grimy game. I'm just saying grimy because it was under 100 points. It was more, defensive. I think they won 91-90 against Golden State. But then obviously, they just ended up facing a better team in Oklahoma City right now. And there's nothing wrong with that. I'm not going to hold that loss to Oklahoma City over their head, in my opinion. And they still are a top 6 team right now for me. They're still locking up on defense. They're 2nd in opponents' field goal percentage at 43%. They're allowing the fewest assists per game at 22 assists. And they're still 1st in reboundings too. The biggest problem for me with this team, I've been very consistent with it, and I talked a little bit more extensively about it last week, is their offense. Obviously, I don't expect them to become a top 10 offense this year, but we'll see what happens, because Houston right now, and I'm going to talk about it a little bit later in my What's New segment, but Houston got about $40 million in expiring contracts. So I'm interested to see if before the deadline, if they end up, packaging those expired contracts and getting, a more offensively adding more offense to this team, essentially, is what I'm going to be paying attention to for the Houston Rockets. But they come in at number 6 this week for me. Number 7, this team is 17-11. And that is the Orlando Magic. Orlando right now, they're 25th in offensive efficiency. They're 3rd in defensive efficiency, and they're 10th in net rating. So I'm not going to punish them for their 2 losses over this last week. Obviously, they don't have their 2 best players right now, but I feel like they were pretty competitive in those 2 games. So I didn't want to hold that too much over their head. And obviously, they'll get Paolo Banchero will be back within the next, like I've been saying it now, but he'll be back really, really soon, probably within the next, I would say 2 weeks, he'll probably be back. So this team is just a really good defensive team, even without those two players. So that kind of just screams to them. But again, just like Houston, in my opinion, this is a team offensively that even with those two guys, I still don't think that's enough. I still think they need that offensive, a little bit more of an offensive punch. Wink, wink, Anthony Simons. Anyways, next team on my list, number 8. This team is 16-10, and that is the New York Knicks. New York right now, they're 3rd in the NBA in offensive efficiency. They're 16th in defensive efficiency, and they're 5th in net rating. So they got embarrassed in the third quarter by Atlanta. So I wasn't too pleased about that. But they moved up on my list because Golden State essentially fell off my list, so I had to move them up one spot. And the team that debuts at number 10 this week, I did not want to move them all the way up to number 7. Or otherwise, I would have kept New York at the spot that they're at last week. I think they're at 9 last week for me. But yeah, they got embarrassed by Atlanta, which I wasn't okay with. Yes, they beat the Magic, but let's be real. Magic didn't have their top 2 players. This is still a top 10 team, in my opinion. They have a top 5 offense. It's hard for me to keep them off the list, but these next, so they got 3 games coming up this week. And I'll be paying very close attention to those 3 games. Because if they lose 2 out of the 3, they might fall off my thing. Because they should not lose. They should not lose 2 of the next 3 if you look at their schedule. I don't have it in front of me, but I think they play like New Orleans. They play like 2 lottery teams, and I think they play 1 quality team during this week. But yeah, so New York comes in at number 8 this week for me. Number 9, this team is 14-11. That is the Minnesota Timberwolves. Minnesota right now, they're 19th in offensive efficiency, and they're 4th in defensive efficiency, and they're 8th in net rating. So obviously they only got moved up because, like I just told you guys, I moved Golden State down. They kept the Lakers and Spurs both under 100 points. And literally last week, I talked about them keeping teams under 100. They had actually a streak going where I think they led, I think it was like 4 games in a row where they kept teams under 100, which obviously in today's NBA it's a very hard task to do. And so I kind of rewarded them again for keeping these other 2 teams under 100. I didn't take them out of my top 10. They're about to play much better offensively, gifted teams this upcoming week. They played New York and Atlanta. So we'll see how good their defense really is against those teams. But yeah, so right now they're number 9 for me because Minnesota's a really, really good defensive team. Obviously, offensively, they're kind of lacking now without Karl Anthony Towns. And I feel comfortable saying that they won. I feel comfortable saying New York won that trade. And I told my friends that when it happened, I felt like that was the case. Minnesota, I ain't going to say too much about Minnesota right now, but something to pay attention to in Minnesota is the idea of them extending Julius Randle. Is that something that they're willing to do this summer? Or are they going to let Julius Randle walk and just have the cap space? Because the summer after that, summer of 2026, and I'm going to talk about that more in my What's New segment, it could be a special one. It could be a special one. Anyways, they're number 9 right now, okay? Number 10 on my list. This team is 14-10, and that is the Denver Nuggets. Denver right now, they're 7th in offensive efficiency. They're 15th in defensive efficiency, and they're 13th in net rating. And so last night, I told myself if they beat the Kings, and I watched the game, I felt like I was like, if they beat the Kings, then I feel comfortable enough putting them back in the top 10. They were in the top 10 at a point in the season. But obviously, Joker had his family matters. And then I think just, the team finding their rhythm. Also, I don't have it in front of me right now. I'm going to try to get it up while I'm talking to you guys. But Jamal Murray has seemed to have found his rhythm somewhat a little bit this month. Like I said, I'm going to try to pull it up for you guys so I can give you guys the exact numbers about Jamal Murray. But they now sport the second longest winning streak in the Western Conference right now at 3 games, which obviously 3 games is not, something to be too proud about, but 3 games is 3 games. And last night for me, they really just showed a heart of a champion, in my opinion. Against Sacramento, they really just showed a heart of a champion, and that was enough for me to put them in at this spot. I was like, okay, they showed me what I needed to see. And obviously, night in and night out, you have Nikola Jokic, you're going to be in games, okay? You're going to be in games when you have a player like that. And obviously, yes, they have. And if you really look at their games this month, they only have really one bad loss. And their one bad loss came against the Washington Wizards. But other than that, I have them at number 10. And yeah, I do have the Jamal Murray statistic because this month he's also found a little bit of rhythm right now. On the month, he's averaging 19 points, 6 assists, and 3 rebounds, and 1 steal and 1 block, and only 2 turnovers. He's shooting 45% from the field and 40 43.5% from three and 93% from the free throw line. Obviously, small sample size. It's only been about 6 games. But still, it's good to see Jamal Murray, because if you look at his other 2 months, his shooting slumps were really bad. But I think he might have found his little bit of rhythm this month. So those are my top 10 teams. You guys let me know down in the comment section below who are in your top 10. And also, what teams do you have on the bubble? Usually I talk a little bit more about each team, but this week I've been practicing on trying to cut down my power ranking segment a little bit. But my teams that are on the bubble, Milwaukee is still on the bubble for me. They've been on the bubble for me for about 3 weeks now. I also have the LA Clippers on the bubble, which may be a surprise for some. But for me, LA has kind of just steadied the ship without having Kawhi. And shout out to Ty Lue for his coaching job. But then Golden State has officially dropped out of my top 10. They're a team that's on the bubble now for me because they've lost. I don't have it in front of me, but I believe they're 2-8 in their last 10 and just have not looked like a top 10 team in my opinion. So that is my PJ's Echelon segment. My next segment is my What's New segment. Now, in the segment of What's New, essentially, this is me freestyling, giving you some type of information, or me just ranting, or me giving you some type of historic statistical thing that may have happened this last week. But this week on What's New, we're going to talk about some of my buyers and sellers for the trade deadline. And I try to pick teams that are not being too much talked about too much. But these are also teams that just are intriguing to me, okay? So some of the teams, so we're going to talk about my buyers first. So one of my buyers, maybe a surprise to some, maybe not a surprise to most, is the Denver Nuggets. Denver, please get Nikola Jokic a little bit more help. And I just told you guys that Jamal Murray is kind of coming into his own, but I still think they could use, another veteran player coming off that bench. Russell Westbrook, I don't know. It wasn't a good pickup, in my opinion, getting Russell Westbrook. I don't think that was a good pickup. I think in the locker room, great pickup. I think Russ is such a great locker room guy, so there's nothing wrong there. But on the court, it's just hard to watch him with the team at times. But yeah, so Denver Nuggets, they're one of my buyers. I think they should try and get one more player. Another team, I just talked about them a little bit during my during my power ranking segment, and that's the Orlando Magic. Orlando, I've been saying it since the summertime. Go get Anthony Simons from the Portland Trail Blazers. Portland's not going to extend Anthony Simons. Anthony Simons only got 2 years left on his contract. He has this year and next year. Portland obviously is going to move forward with Shaedon and Scoot as their backcourt. Go get Anthony Simons. I think a combination of, you might have to give up Anthony Black, and you might be like, oh, why would Portland want Anthony Black? I think Anthony Black can be an outstanding backup guard for any championship team. So I think him being on that Portland youth, being a part of that Portland youth, I think that would be great for him coming off the bench for the Blazers as a backup guard. I just think it would be great. I think that would be great. I think Portland should prioritize him and then get, 2 first-round picks from Orlando. I think that should be enough. But obviously, you got to make the salary matches. So I don't know who else Orlando has to give up, but maybe some expiring contracts if they have any. I haven't got a chance to look. But yeah, so they're one of my buyers as well as the Orlando Magic. I think they need more offense, and I already said that. They need more offense. I think Anthony Simons is the perfect guard that could be next to Jalen Suggs. Obviously, he sucks on defense, but guess what? This team is an amazing defensive team. So yeah, Orlando, go get Anthony Simons. Another team is the Indiana Pacers, and it may be a surprise to you guys, but I said it during the summer during the Indiana Pacers season preview. Miles Turner. This is his last year. So we'll see if they extend him or if they're going to trade him. That's something to keep your eyes out on. So that's something I wanted to throw out to you guys. Another team, I already said it, was the Houston Rockets. They have about $40 million in expiring contracts. Go package those up. Go grab some more offense, Houston, okay? So those are my buyers. My sellers, I just said it. One is the Portland Trail Blazers, obviously getting rid of Jeremy Grant. He has a horrible contract. Take 1 first-round pick from the Lakers, okay? Take it, Portland. Stop being greedy, Joe Cronin. Joe actually came into my job a couple weeks ago, so shout out to Joe. Really nice guy. He came into my job with, I think, his wife or somebody a couple weeks ago. But anyways, get rid of Jeremy Grant. Get off of Anthony Simons. Trade Ayton. Ayton only got 2 years left on his deal. And obviously, Klingon is the future. Robert Williams, get off of him. He has 2 years left on his deal, Portland. Matisse Thybulle is somebody I don't really see nobody talking about in trade talks. But I think he could be a quality person to come off the bench, too, for a championship team. So Portland, get off of Matisse Thybulle, in my opinion, as well. He has this year, and he has a player option for next season. Portland, get off of him too, okay? Another team, universally recognized, is the Washington Wizards. Get off of Kuzma, get off of Valanciunas, get off of Brogdon, get off of Bagley. I think Bagley can be a good backup center for a team, championship or playoff team, just giving them, 10, 15 minutes off the bench. Another team is the Utah Jazz. Get off of Colin Sexton, get off of Jordan Clarkson, get off of John Collins, okay, Utah. A last team is the Raptors. Raptors getting off of Kelly Olynyk, getting off of Chris Boucher, getting off of Bruce Brown, getting off of Jakob Poeltl. Toronto, get rid of those players. I want to talk about the Jazz a little bit more. I think Danny Ainge is doing some real slimy stuff right now, which I respect. He obviously played a big hand in getting AJ DeBonças to go to BYU next year. He actually put some money in for the NIL deal. I think Utah's plan, the NBA's rigged. Let's be real. NBA's rigged. I think what they're planning to do is Utah, obviously, I don't think they're going to win the lottery this year. You can put it on record. You can say I said it. NBA's rigged, okay? We know the lottery's rigged. Utah's not winning the lottery this year because I think what's going to happen is they're going to set it up so Utah can get AJ DeBonças in the 2026 NBA draft. They're going to give them the first pick in that draft, in my opinion, is what's going to happen. Which is fine. That's perfectly fine. So my Utah fans, shout out to my boy Keola. He's a Utah boy. They're not going to win the draft this year. So just let it go. And you should want AJ DeBonças because he's a special talent in my opinion. So that's something I wanted to also point out to you guys is that I just don't believe Utah's going to win the lottery this year. And later this season, I will talk about what team I think is going to win the lottery. It may surprise you guys. It may not. And I'll give my reason why at a later date. But yeah, so I just wanted to point out that and also my buyers and sellers. Like I said, I just talked to you guys about the buyers and sellers. But also I want to talk about the 2026 free agent class. It is loaded. And we will see what happens. Obviously, some of these players may get extended. Some of these players probably are going to get traded. Hence, we'll see also what happens with some of these big men during this upcoming trade deadline with players like Clint Capella, Miles Turner, Nikola Vucevic, Jonas Valanciunas. We'll see what happens to those players. But also, in my opinion, like I said, the 2026 free agent class is loaded. I'm not going to sit up here and go over the players, but if you haven't seen who's going to be a free agent in that class, I would highly recommend going back and look. I'm just going to simply put it this way to you guys. The teams for me that are on the clock, and I did state some of these teams during my summer episodes where I did. If you haven't seen none of my season previews for any of these teams, I'm not just saying it because it's my podcast, but I would highly recommend going back and just watching some of your favorite teams, see what I have to say about those because I have some really good information. But I'm saying that to say this. The Phoenix Suns, the Milwaukee Bucks, the Sacramento Kings, and the Dallas Mavericks, they are all on the clock, in my opinion. Some of their top players are going to be free agents in 2026, and so that's why they're on the clock for me. So we'll leave it at that, all right? So that's my What's New segment. I obviously have more to say, but I'm trying not to make these episodes too long. I'm trying to keep them between 25 to 35 minutes. I don't want to take up too much of you guys' time. But yeah, so let me know what's new for you guys. Let me know what things are you guys going to be keeping your eyes out on moving forward as the NBA season progresses. I already told you guys 2026 draft class is going to be loaded. I still believe next year is LeBron's last year. I've been saying that since the summer, and I still am sticking by that. I think over these next 2 years, I believe really could set us up for the next, probably to the end of this decade. That's how big I think starting today until the summer of 2026 is going to be for the NBA. So that is my What's New segment. Down in the comment section below, let me know some news that you guys want to share with all of us, okay? My next segment is a segment I like to call Games of the Week. Now, in this segment, essentially, I'm going to be talking about games. As the season goes on, I will be talking about games that have some type of standing significance or some type of significance to home court advantage or something. But as of right now in the season, I've done an episode where I talked about games of significance. But the 3 games that I'm talking about today, they didn't have too much significance. These were just games that I really enjoyed watching over the last week. And obviously, yes, I've watched more than 3 games this last week. I literally try to watch just about every game, which is you'll see. I mean, if you follow me on social media or anything, you'll see I have a laptop, I have an iPad, I got 2 TVs in my apartment. I'll watch 3 or 4 games at once. No BS. So I try to watch as many games as possible. But this week, I picked 3 games that I really enjoyed, and I want to share with you guys, okay? So, first game took place December 13th on last Friday, and that was the Phoenix Suns versus the Utah Jazz. Phoenix won this game 134 to 126, and I chose this game because it had some of my. So for me, I really enjoy when Devin Booker has it going. Okay, I'm just keep a buck with you guys. It's just something about watching players like him, Donovan Mitchell, Luka. I would say even a player like Shea. There's just certain guys, Steph. There's just certain players that when they got it going, it's just fun to watch. And it's just beautiful. Kevin Durant. It's just beautiful watching certain guys get it going. And Devin Booker's one of those guys for me where I just like watching him play when he got it going. And one of these games was like that. He took 27 shots. And I love when he's uber aggressive like that. Personally, I would like to see Devin Booker take 22 to 23 shots every game. But for some odd reason, that's not him. That just ain't him. And I hate when players are like, oh, my favorite player is Kobe. Bro, play like Kobe then. Take 23, 24 shots a game then if that's really your guy. I hate that when they're like, oh, I just like this mentality and stuff. Like, why not adopt that mentality? Why not do that? Anyways, sorry. It just makes me mad. Like players like Devin Booker, Shaedon Sharpe, certain players, it just makes me mad. They're not super aggressive as their so-called favorite player is. Like you see how Kobe would take 24, 25 shots and he'll shoot like 6 of 25, but it's the uber aggressiveness. Anyways, that's why I chose this game is because I like when Devin Booker's super aggressive. He took 27 shots in this game. And I just love when he's like that. I just love watching that. And obviously watching Kevin Durant. This was Kevin Durant's first game back. I just enjoy watching Kevin Durant too. He's one of those players where it's just easy cheese for him, man. When he's shooting that thing, it's easy. But also, this game also featured one of my favorite young shooting guards in Keontae George. I'm a big Keontae George fan. I would say I'm very high on Keontae George. He's improved slightly this year, but I just don't think he's a point guard. And they try to play him at point. I still think he's a shooting guard. But yeah, so that's why I chose this game is because of that reasoning. Mainly because of Devin Booker being aggressive and Kevin Durant coming back. Another game that I really enjoyed watching, this game took place Saturday, December 14th. That was the Oklahoma City Thunder versus the Houston Rockets. Oklahoma City won this game 111-96. This game featured two of the top 3 best defensive teams in basketball, in my opinion. And I would not mind watching this series. Oh, I'm sorry. I got the hiccups right now. I would not mind watching this game in the playoffs. And I think this is something, not this year. I don't want to see it this year because I think Houston is still super duper young. So I don't think it would make that great of a playoff series. But, the next season and for years to come, I would not mind watching this in the playoffs. And I think this is a series. These two teams, we will see them play in the playoffs at some point in the near future, I believe, because these are two of the more promising young teams in the NBA. Sorry, I just have to get some water because I have the hiccups. But yeah, so obviously the biggest thing for me, it still stays the same with Houston, is their offense. Offensively, they're not where Oklahoma City is. And you could see it in the game. You could see the levels, the difference. OKC know who they are. They figured out who they are as a team. And Houston is still in that early stage, figuring out who they are and what they want to become. I said it last week. I still believe Reed Shepherd being in the lineup will give this team a big boost. I still believe that, in my opinion. I think him and Alperen Şengün can be a poor version of Nikola Jokic and Jamal Murray. I do believe that. And that's all this team is missing is offensively, is improving themselves. And this is probably the last year that they're going to have Fred VanVleet because I don't see them leaning forward with him. I don't know. I just don't like him as their starter right now. But yeah, Oklahoma City right now has everything it takes, in my opinion, to become an NBA champ. Will they do it this year? We'll see what happens. I don't want to give my opinion on it anymore. If you're interested in that, you could check out my season preview episode where I give my predictions. Check that out if you want to know what I really have to say more about OKC. But I just want to say this. I want to say this, and then I'll go to the next game. So something I told my brother, I just told him this, and I believe this. I believe the playoffs exposes teams' weaknesses, and I believe the NBA Finals exposes superstars' weaknesses. And I'm saying that because I'm talking about the Oklahoma City Thunder. This year, we're going to find out if this is a team that will get to the finals or if they won't. But that's something I wanted to throw out to you guys because we're going to see, I think it's likely we will see some weakness from this team at some point because this team has not been through playoff adversity as a unit yet. Last year was the first real year that this team got to the playoffs. I still believe that they will go through some type of adversity at some point, either in the finals or sometime during their playoff run. But that's something I just wanted to point out to you guys is the whole weakness thing. And, We'll see. We'll see if I'm wrong, if I'm right. Anyways, next game I want to talk about to you guys. This game took place on Sunday, December 15th, and that was the Dallas Mavericks versus the Golden State Warriors. Dallas won this game. Klay looked a lot more comfortable being back in the Bay once again. Luka went nuke, okay? He had 45 points, 11 rebounds, 13 assists, 3 steals, which I don't have in front of me right now, but I believe he's third in the NBA right now in steals. He also had 2 blocks. He had 3 turnovers. He shot 70% from the field. He shot 54.5% from 3. And I've been telling you guys, I told you guys this, I think it was last week or the week before, that Luka was starting to get into MVP form. And I saw it at the beginning of this month. I just seen what kind of tear he was on. And he continued it throughout this game. Dallas started this game off hot as fish grease. I think they started like 8 for 8 or like 9 for 9. And they just all game long was just on fire. They were blazing. And so the reason why I chose this game was because this was NBA history. This was the most threes made in a game in NBA history, which was 48. They combined 48 of 95, which was over 50% from 3. Like I said, this was a crazy offensive game. And I knew something was going to have to give in this matchup because Golden State, at the time, they were top 6, top 7 in defense, and Dallas was a top 5 offense. So I knew something had to give, but I was not at all expecting that. It was a fun game to watch. I'm more of a defensive guy. I prefer games under 100. Those are just my preferences. Growing up, we played a lot of physical basketball at the places I play basketball. So seeing games, in a 130, 140, not really my cup of tea, but still, it's still fun to watch. Shot making is always fun to watch. So those are my games of the week. You let me know down in the comment section below, what games do you have for your games of the week and why? Why did you choose those games? Obviously, I've watched more games, and obviously I could sit here and talk about more games, but again, trying to keep these episodes at a reasonable time span for all of you guys and even for myself. My next segment is a segment. This is the first time I'm introducing this segment on the pod. It's my In the Lab segment. Now, In the Lab, essentially what this is going to entail is me just talking about high school, international, and some college basketball, right? So I'm just going to dive straight into it because I don't want to waste any more of you guys' time. I have a lot to say about this because I've been taking a lot of notes for college, and I was just going to do isolated college episodes, but I just feel like that's robbing you guys of me, like, not being consistent with letting you guys know what's in my mind if I'm not giving this to you more often. So bi-weekly, you will see In the Lab, and every other week we'll still do rookie talk, all right? So let's just dive straight into it. I'm going to go through some of this as fast as possible. I'm not going to give you everything because time is cutting short on our episodes. But yeah, so I'm going to go down a little bit of the recruiting update. And I'm just going to give you I'm going to show some love to a player. So we'll start off with the love to the player. First and foremost, I want to give some love to Andrei Stojakovic. This is the son, yes, of Peja Stojakovic. He's a sophomore. He's 6'7". He's about 205, 210. He transferred from Stanford, and I was following him last year at Stanford, but he transferred to Cal Berkeley this year. And boy, he's been hooping. He's been hooping, all right? Up to this point so far, he's hooping. I don't have the numbers in front of me, what he's averaging. But I think he's leading the team in scoring. I know that. I think he's averaging like 19 points. I think he's averaging over a block a game. He's done really well. He looked a lot more comfortable this year, in my opinion. Obviously, being the vocal point of the offense, he just looks a lot more comfortable to me. And I think he is a first rounder. All right. That might be a hot take to you guys, but I think he's a first rounder. It's only been about 9 games so far. What I'm going to be paying attention to moving forward for him is how he performs in ACC play. Because obviously he's performed well against some teams already this year. Again, I don't have it in front of me, but he's performed well against some teams this year. But in conference play, I'm interested to see how it is for him because obviously in conference play, some of these teams are going to have a little bit more time to prepare for you. He's the vocal point of the offense. But yeah, so I just wanted to show some love to him because he's playing very well, and he's somebody that's on my radar, and he's been on my radar. I didn't talk about him as one of my top 30 prospects, but that wasn't because I didn't believe in him. I just didn't choose him as somebody I was going to be keeping my eyes on. But I'm going to because, like I said, now he's playing really well right now for Cal, in my opinion. So I want to talk about a little bit about some of this recruiting update really fast with you guys. And some of this stuff obviously happened a couple months ago, but also I don't know if you guys know about it or not. But anyways, I'm gonna give you guys the information. I've been knowing about it. I just been sitting on the information, but I'm just gonna say to you guys some of this recruiting update. Okay, Darian Peterson, who I've talked about during some of my summer episodes, he's challenging for the number 1 player in the country, in my opinion. Him, AJ DeBonsas, I think are the top 2 players in the country. I think Cam Boozer is right there with them as well. But I'm a big fan of Darian Peterson. Anyways, he committed to Kansas. I talked about him quite a bit over the summer. Keon Anthony, which is Carmelo Anthony's son, he committed to Syracuse. Malik Thomas, the number 11 rated player in class of 2025. He's the number 3 shooting guard. He committed to Arkansas. Arkansas now has the number 1 rated point guard in Darius Agoff. And also Malik Thomas, who's the number 3 shooting guard and leading their backcourt next year. So shout out to Coach Cal, obviously doing his recruiting magic. Another player, 5-star Koi Pete. Koi, I think I pronounced his name right. Koi or Kai. Either Koi or Kai Pete. He's down to 5 schools. I think he's the only player left in the top 5 in the class of 25 that hasn't committed yet. Don't quote me on that, but I believe he's the only player left. He's down to 5 schools, though. The 6'8 forward. He's top 10 recruiting class of 25. He's down to Texas, Baylor, Houston, Arizona, and Arizona State. All right. Arizona State also has a special player, Jaden. I can't pronounce his last name. It's like something with a Q. Anyways, if you guys haven't seen him, special. He's a special defensive player. I believe he's the youngest player in college basketball right now. I believe he's only 17. So he's not draft eligible next year. He'll be in college next year. But if you haven't seen him at Arizona State, go take the time to check him out. I believe he's leading college basketball in stocks for like blocks and steals. I believe he's leading all of college basketball. I think he averages like 5 a game. Yeah, very special player. I think he averages like 3 blocks and 2 steals. I don't have it in front of me, but I just wanted to give a shout out to him really quick because I just seen Arizona State pop up. Anyways, another recruit is Chris Sinek. He's a top 5. He committed to Houston. I believe he's a center. Oh, he's a power forward. He's about 6'10". That's the highest recruit in Houston program history. Shout out to University of Houston doing their thing down there. I talked about this other player quite a bit. I'm a big fan of his, Sean Abevy. Sean Abevy, he was hooping over the summer. I talked about him over the summer quite a bit. He won an MVP at this camp that I was covering over the summer in one of my summer episodes. He committed to the University of Cincinnati. He actually broke the record for overtime elite with a scoring record in a game. I believe he had like 44 or 46 or something like that. I don't have it in front of me right now. But yeah, so that's Sean Abevy. If you want to hear more about him, you got to go check out some of my summer episodes. I talked about him quite a bit as well. Another player, his name is Condre Harrison. He committed to University of Oregon, and the reason why I picked him is because he's the first player since NBA started doing their rankings to be ranked in both football and basketball. He's the number 1 rated tight end in a class of 2026. He's the top 10 power forward as well in class of 2026 for basketball. So he's number 1. He's the number 1 tight end in football, and he's top 10 as a power forward in basketball. He's going to U of O. He's actually going to try to play both sports. So I wanted to shout him out because I think that's just an amazing thing, and I don't think nobody's talking about him. Lastly, another player I want to give a shout out to, and then we'll end the segment, is Elijah Arenas, Gilbert Arenas' son. He reclassified to class of 2025. In 2026, he was rated as the number, I think, 4 or 5 player. In 25, they got him ranked, I think, at like 16th or 17th. I don't have it in front of me. But I also just wanted to put that out to you guys that he reclassified. There's so much more stuff that I want to share with you guys. Like, I have literally like 2 pages full of stuff I want to talk to you guys about. But I'll save that for not next week, because next week we'll talk rookie talk. But the week after, we'll revisit some more of my college episode. And the next time I talk about college, I'll talk about players that were new to me. Players that I had no idea about, new players that I learned about, which is hard because I think I do a really good job at keeping up with high school players and even college players. But some of these freshmen just have blown me away thus far, and I want to give a shout out to them. I'm just going to say their names, and I'll talk more about them in 2 weeks. John Mosley Jr. for Ohio State, Robert Wright III for Baylor, Jeremiah Fears of Oklahoma, and then Jas Richardson of Michigan State. Those are players that I was not familiar with until I started watching them early in the college season. So obviously I've been keeping my eyes on them over the last couple weeks, but I haven't had the chance to talk to you guys about them, and I'm not going to do it in this episode because the episode's going too long now, but I just want to show them some love. I'll talk more about them at a later date. Other than that, I want to give a thanks to you guys for being consistent with me. I've just recently passed 150 subs, and all thanks to you guys. I'm gonna keep pushing out the content, and it would greatly appreciate if you can drop me a like down below so we can get this content out into more people's algorithms. Otherwise, I'll see you guys next week. PJ's out.